button. We're preparing to live stream. Hopefully this is all going to work okay. Setting up the meeting for Facebook Live. Let's see. Okay, we're live on Facebook. Excellent. Now let's try and see if I can get you on Instagram as well.
Okay.
Bear with me, everybody on Facebook. We're just trying to set the tech. Excellent. We're live on Instagram. So you should be able to ask to come and join me.
Okay.
Excellent. We're live on Instagram. So you should be able to ask computer because I think you should be joining me soon.
There you go.
Oh, you've joined. It says that you're. Oh, there we go. You should be joining me soon. Oh, it's all working. Hi, Artie. People on Facebook. Hello, hello. I need to find somewhere where I can get to the comments. There we go. Oh, yay! I think we're live. I think we're live. Can you hear me okay, Stephanie?
I can hear you.
Oh, excellent. Okay, people on Facebook and Instagram, I'm hopeful this has worked. Please, Artie on Instagram and anyone on Facebook, please let us know if you can hear us okay. We've tried to do a sound check before we started, but who knows, you know, my my issues with tech. So, oh, Sarah, hello, Bob, hello, Sarah. Can you hear us okay? And is there any feedback? Just let us know that so that we can then start talking about the good stuff. Hi, Cheryl Ann. Hi, Nat Geographic. Okay. Someone needs to tell me that you can hear us, okay? Otherwise, I'm just going to go for it. All good. Fabulous. Yay. It worked. So, welcome everybody. Good evening. Hi, Vanille. It's lovely to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to put my screen. Got it. We're really thrilled that you're here. Hi, Emily. And we've got a great topic tonight. So I've got one of my bestest guests ever, Stephanie from the Fulfilled Feline. Stephanie and I are friends, we're colleagues, co-workers, and we are very, very much cat advocates. So let me just introduce you to Stephanie and tell you a little bit about her before I throw my first question over to her. So Stephanie is a cat behaviour specialist and educator. So she's not a traditional behaviourist, which is one of the things that I absolutely adore about her. She started volunteering with cats at Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando, which is a rescue or shelter, depending on whether you're here in the UK or across the pond in the US, back in 2013. And she certified as a feline behaviourist in 2017. And she started exploring and kind of, I think we'll talk about her story, but she basically started to investigate and to delve into the emotional and spiritual needs of cats. And that's been really, really early for her on her journey in terms of connecting with and understanding cats. So Cheryl Ann says now it's echoing. Hang on, has anybody else said that? Okay, you might want to turn your sound down. Cheryl Ann, let's keep going and see if anybody else comments about that. So yes, so Stephanie is somebody that has been interested in cats for a very, very long time. She has her own, thank you, Emily, there's no feedback on Instagram. But there is an echo on Facebook. Oh no. Okay, let's try it now. See if that's better. I've muted my Facebook rather than just my computer. Echo comes and goes. Bad echo now. Oh, for goodness sake. Hi, June. Okay. I was on such a roll with my introduction. Right, we'll give it a couple of minutes, and if there's still echoes, I'm afraid we'll have to give up on Facebook and we'll probably just transfer to Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you might need to come and join us there. So Stephanie is hugely passionate about cats. She's got her own two, Jules and Juniper, who are absolutely gorgeous. And you should follow Stephanie on Instagram because she shares pictures of the two, I'd say kittens, but they're a year old now, aren't they? And I wanted Stephanie to come tonight because I want her to share her perspective. I want her to speak up as a cat advocate. And I know that there's a lot of people in the Naturally Cats community who also either believe what we believe or have those kind of that understanding of cats and that desire and drive to represent them and to represent their emotional needs, which is what I think we need to be talking about a lot more. So first of all, before I ask the first question, welcome, Stephanie, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits. So it's nice to finally connect where we can share with a group of people all of our amazing thoughts about cats.
Definitely. So first question, tell us how you went to the shelter. How did you get involved with the shelter? Because I know from, my understanding of you and obviously our friendship that you, that's where your journey about learning about cats began. So tell us what drew you to the shelter.
I had been wanting to volunteer for a while. And, you have like ideas that you're going to think about, oh, maybe I'll do it next time or next month. And it never happens. And you just sit on it. And unfortunately, in early 2013, we had a really horrible experience where we were living. We're living in an apartment complex. In the apartment next door to us, in the middle of the night, we heard screaming and gunshots. And 2 of our neighbors were murdered in a home invasion robbery, right where we heard everything. And it was really frightening. That shakes your world. And it's not, thank goodness we were safe and okay. And people say, it's not your tragedy. I heard a lot of that, but it's like, you hear it, you relive it, you experience that. And it's in your home, which is your sanctuary. You should feel safe at home. And that was during the month of February. And experiencing that like just really shook me and left me really anxious, nervous, a lot of like not feeling like myself and not knowing what to do with all this kind of negative anxiety and all these feelings that were really strong and intense. And sitting at home is certainly not how I wanted to spend my time. So I'm like, now's the time to go to this, volunteering at the shelter. So the next month in March, I applied to volunteer at the shelter. And I am super, I have a really, back then, really strong social anxiety. So it really was scary for me to kind of, you have to talk to people, you have to kind of do all this. And, once I started going, I connected with a lot of people there. I connected with the cats there. And it really was such a supportive, growing, healing environment for me to channel all of this, anxiety and stress into something that is meaningful and makes a difference. So that's how I got started with cats in the shelter.
Did you have cats at the time? Did you have your own cat then?
I did have Shara, lovingly known as Kitty. We had her for about 4 years at the time. Mm-hmm. And I had been following webcams of cat rescues and stuff beforehand. That's what kind of made me want to volunteer initially, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many cats that need help. But I had a cat, but it's a totally different experience when you go in the shelter and see so many different types of cats, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know how you feel. I've worked in rescues before. I've worked in a couple as a volunteer, and it can be quite heartbreaking, but it can also be quite, this is going to sound a bit strange, but it can be quite loving. You can find connections with cats. And even if you go regularly, which I know you do go regularly to yours, you see them evolve, don't you? You see them kind of trust a little and grow a little and feel obviously more comfortable with their surroundings. But, for me, it's like, there's always this perception, I believe, where shelters or rescues are a bad place and they're hard and it's sad. And don't get me wrong, I would never ever wish for cats to be in a shelter or a rescue. But the fact is they're safe, and it is kind of like part of the circle of life, right? If they get misplaced or displaced, they have to find somewhere to go. And thankfully there is this place that offers that sanctuary. So I had to stop working at my rescue center, because the more my energy and my awareness and my emotional skills kind of evolved, I found it harder. And I just, before we talk more about the cat side of it, I just want to kind of touch on the bit about us and our energy, because you know that that's a big part of where I am and what I do. And I really would love it if you would share with people how you cope emotionally, going to the shelter regularly, seeing these cats that need rehoming. And I know we're going to talk about how you connect with them and support them, but how do you deal with it? How do you cope with it?
I have to be honest with you, there's been years in my 8.5 years of volunteering that were really hard. When I first went in there, I really connected with the people and the energy. And, when cats are in there, they don't have a mom or a dad, in those like hour or two I'm there, and I can see that they, need just, most of them do not want cuddles there. They just need someone to just let them be. So in that moment, I'm your mom and dad, I'm respecting you and giving you that love and support from whatever distance or whatever way I can gauge that they are asking for that. But over time, it's a really hard environment because you can't control anything really. It's loud, it's noisy. There's people, shelters and rescue workers have it hard. It is not a joyous job all the time. It is tough, and they're getting a lot of junk from the public, and thank goodness they're there. In the first place, but that also limits their time and with resources and money to be able to, do a lot of the things that you or I would think would be wonderful for cats. But if there's not the support, there's not the jobs, they can't get the jobs filled and they don't have the money, it's really hard. And there's so many years where I got into this mode of like robot, like I was disassociated from being there, because it's like, I can't help all these cats, I can't help them, like, and people would come up and be like, what's wrong with this one, why is he like this, what is this? And it's really draining, and it really can feel suffocating at times. And I wish I could say it's sunshine and roses all the time, but it's not. But I've really had to work through, what can I do in the time I have that is gentle and loving, and not put pressure on myself, because sometimes I put a lot of pressure on myself to fix everything and help everyone and listen to everyone's concerns about this cat and why isn't this happening here. And I can't take that on. I just volunteer there. I don't work there. So really compartmentalizing, the politics of the shelter, what's going on behind the scenes, all this stuff, and putting energy and love and focus into the stuff that I can do, and concentrating. Maybe it's only, 1 or 2 cats in that 2-hour shift that I'm drawn to, that I feel just need loving energy. And, that's something to honor myself and be the best I can be, and use my abilities the best way to help the cats there, and to be my best self.
Lovely. I love that. I think we really do need to be aware of our own energy, what we can manage, our boundaries, our limits. And I think, limits are something that some of us are particularly bad at, not crossing, and like you say, giving more than you've got, and trying to help as many as you can. And I know for the healers, and I don't mean like necessarily energy healers, but those of us that have that heart and that drive to heal. So, vets, vet nurses, do you know what I mean? Shelter, rescue workers, even groomers and things like that. But anybody in the pet industry, people that want to help animals, it can be really hard at times to have to say either no or to put a boundary in place. Emily's just said it's tough in the same way in vet practice too, because there are so many obstacles to create the best welfare. She said, you're so amazing for what you've achieved in those circumstances. And I completely agree. You mentioned about being a volunteer, you don't work there and it's only 2 hours, but do you know what? Those 2 hours will make a big difference. And I had to realize that when I was working in a rescue. It was when I was training with all my herbs and remedies. So I would go and put herb gardens down, and I wanted to do it for like all the cats, in all the 12 pens. Do you know what I mean? Like every single cat of all my herbs. but I couldn't do it, you know, so I had to, and obviously I wanted to also feedback to the rescue workers and say, you know, which cats, you know, this is the cat you need to think about, or this one's shown interest in this remedy, or, you know, do this work with this one. And they don't have the time. They are purely functional, from my experience anyway. So I want to talk a bit about how you then got into cat behavior. So you had this terribly traumatic experience at home, which I can't imagine how that rocked your world, and not like in a good way, you know, in terms of like the stability of your core, you know, your home, your safe space. So you went to the shelter. It almost sounds like you found some solace and almost like peace there. Tell me how, or tell us, because there's loads of people watching. Tell us how did that lead you to then sort of have that light bulb and think, oh, I'm going to train in cat behavior? You know, what was the next step for that?
I think, you know, having Chara Kitty at home, like she was the perfect cat. Like she didn't have any behavior things. She was totally chill, whatever. But you go into a shelter and there's a lot of different energy, a lot of different cats and personalities and feelings. And, you know, me being like introverted, me being very sensitive, you know, all these things I noticed when you're in a room that has 60 plus cats, a lot of cats kind of feel like I do. In a if I were in that situation, I totally get it, kitties. Like I so get it. And I really like appreciated that part of them. And that made me really want to better understand them and appreciate them for where they are. And really, I felt very, very guided to wanting to advocate, like you say, giving cats a voice, saying, you know, this cat, you know, is traumatized and scared and not wanting to come out and be your friend because he doesn't know where his home is. He's in a strange environment. It's very scary. And that advocacy is really what led me to want to learn more about behavior. But also, you know, we have adopters come in and ask questions to us about even the cats they have at home. And I'd hear a lot of questions like, why is my kitten biting my ankles? Or why is my kitten scratching my furniture? And I'd ask, you know, do you have, you know, scratching posts for them? Are you playing with them? No, it's a cat. I thought, you know, I could just leave the cat home for 8 hours a day and it's fine. And the stuff that like I realized through, you know, working with cats and all of this and talking to people like you, Julianne, and other people who work with cats, the stuff that makes sense is not clear to a lot of people at all. So I just felt this need to advocate for cats. And that's where, and behavior really matched with kind of and aligned with how I was viewing cats and trying to understand them better. So getting the certification in behavior helped me understand, you know, how do cats use their senses and how does that impact how they view their environment? How can I help people see cats through a cat's eyes versus their own? So that was really what drew me into the behavior aspect, and just kind of solidifying that intuitiveness that I had with them with some knowledge that I'd be like, oh yeah, it's because of this. So it was marrying kind of the logic and the heart, as I know we've talked about, in a really good package. So that's how that started for me.
Yeah, lovely. Brilliant. Hang on a second. C.A. Cornell says that there are 2 cats that are really coming out of their shells, which is awesome to see. That was great. Absolutely great. And I think when you see cats at a shelter and a rescue place, it can take them time, right? They are in such an emotional crisis almost. You know, we're talking about emotional awareness tonight. And hi, Deborah, you know, we're trying to, I want, and I know that you're passionate about this too, to raise awareness of how we need to be aware of their emotions, but also the fact that they have emotions. You know, that's something I think, even like you said, some people aren't really kind of clicked in, you know, sort of aligned with. So I think it's important for us to talk about when cats are in a shelter and a rescue, what happens, you know, what happens to them, what's going on for them emotionally. And, you know, it's it's probably one of the most traumatic things that they will experience. So for us going in, you know, we can come home, whether you work there or whether you are a volunteer. Now, I don't say that lightly, because like we've talked about before, compassion, fatigue, and, you know, having burnout and things like that. But we can come home to our safe space. And when cats are in a shelter or a rescue, they don't have that. They don't have that safe space. They don't have that familiar smell. So is there something that you're able to do, or how do you support cats with this? Because like I said, when I went in, it was with Herb, sometimes it would just be sitting with them and not trying to touch them or anything like that. I remember particularly feral mum who had kittens, and, you know, they were full on feral. She'd never had human interaction. And the manager said to me, you know, knew my experience and said, look, you know, do what you think is best. We've just been outside. No worry, Emily, thank you. She's got to go. You can catch us on replay. Thank you for joining us. And I very much like you've got the head and the logic, haven't you? And you've got the heart and the intuition. And the manager said, oh, we've all been basically outside and just doing the functional stuff. And actually I was like, okay, I'll sit outside, just be around them. And then I felt really drawn to be in the pen, and it was quite, you know, you kind of hold your breath before you go in, because you don't know what's going to happen. But I just sat in there, and within about 45 minutes, you know, each of the kittens had come up to me and then gone back to the mum. You know, the mum had changed her body language position. So, you know, I think we shouldn't underestimate the impact that we can have, even in a short amount of time, because our energy that we bring to them is super important. So if we turn up and we're stressed and busy and everything, they're going to pick up on that as well. So share with us, how do you approach cats when you're working with them in the shelter? What do you do to give them as much support as you can, regardless of whether you've got 5 minutes or 50 minutes? You know, tell us how you help them.
The first thing I do is when I approach cats in a shelter, and we have a setup in our shelter, we have banks of kennels, and their larger kennels have a little porthole so they can go through little sides, and we have 2 free roam rooms. And whenever I approach a cat, I try to be as least threatening as possible. You know, I approach them from a side. I don't make eye contact. I sit in front of their kennel or their cage, and I just sit there for a few minutes and just maybe kind of glance over, see what their body language is like. Body language is the kind of secret key with working with cats, I think, in a lot, especially in a shelter. And if I'm seeing in particular a cat who is fearful, but not like, please go away from me. Because if there's a cat where I'm getting either they're, you know, verbally, or I'm just getting that feeling, I don't need to sit in front of their cage. They don't want that. But sometimes I wish I could tell you, but sometimes you just get that sense that they just want someone to let them be who they want to be in that moment. And sometimes that's just sitting next to them. And I'll just sometimes talk softly, and I'll tell them how brave they are and how much I love them and how much I appreciate their strength, and how just send them a lot of really good messages. Sometimes I put the little calming music on my phone. Lately, I've been learning about crystal healing with animals. So I've been bringing, you know, like rose quartz and aventurine, and these ones I read are really good for cats that are experiencing trauma. And just, you know, I'll put one on the front of their cage, and if they don't care, I'll take it away. But sometimes I'll like sleep right next to it. So, you know, I really kind of gauge it for the cat, but I try to be really not invasive. Really, I don't need a cat to come up and let me pet them. I don't need to reach in and pet them. I really give my distance, because I feel like this is not their sanctuary space. This is not their chosen sanctuary space. This is not a comfortable sanctuary space. They already have people coming in the morning, opening up their cages, cleaning them, rustling through. I want to be invited if I'm invited. Otherwise, I just want to sit with them if I feel drawn that they need just someone to just be like, you can just be whoever you want to be right now, and I'm going to support you, and, you know, give you some nice little music and just let that be. And that's been such a change for me in the last year, when I've kind of had to start compartmentalizing and going through a lot of compassion fatigue with this, and not feeling like, oh, I can't help every cat. it's what can I do in this moment, and just giving a cat the space to be whoever they are. It's just been so rewarding for me and feels really good. And that's so powerful, I think.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. And I love that you are sitting there and telling them they're brave and sending them love. And some people are going to think that we're absolutely crazy and totally bonkers, but I don't care. I think that is one of the best ways to help a cat in that moment. If you think about a human, when I'm trying to help people understand and learn about their cats, and I know that you're very much an educator as well, to try and help humans understand cats. I know it's a passion of yours. I try to help them understand that you don't always have to do something. You don't always have to be doing something for the cat. It's not always about behavior modification or the environment stuff. And don't get me wrong, all of that does make a difference, but you can also talk to them and share energy with them, and that in itself can be uber powerful. So powerful. If you've got a cat that's in a pen, they're trembling, they're literally in this kind of, I can't even say heightened, because it's even like above that, aren't they? This chronic stress and anxious state, the adrenaline, everything's coursing around their body. Like you said, they don't want you to put your hand in and try and stroke them to desensitize them to human touch. They need you to sit there and to not do anything but hold the space for them. And that is something that I do a lot with my human clients as well. Sometimes you just need someone to hold the space. And I mean, if you've got a human who is struggling with anxiety or is, hugely stressed, you don't push their boundaries in that moment, do you? You don't try and go and give them a hug or, sort of like pat them on the shoulder and calm them down. You just listen. You listen to what they need to share, or sometimes you might even just be there with them, just sit quietly in that space wherever they may be. And I think that is another great thing that you're bringing to these shelter animals and cats, when you're working with them. And I'm really glad to hear that you're exploring other complementary and alternative treatments, because obviously, naturally cats with a bit of everything. And I think, if you can bring, like you said, that crystal element, it's another form of energy. So it's another form of support. And it's lovely the way you talk about giving them a choice, whether they work with it or not, because that is about giving them a voice, because they can choose what they want to do with it. So tell me, how did you kind of realize that cats had emotions? Where did something, I know we talked about the story as to how you got into the shelter and the behavior, but what was the next step on the journey? How did you kind of figure out that cats have a range of emotions and that's what needs supporting? I'm not trying to give you a bit of a left field question, but I want you to try to articulate to people how you found out about the connection that you've got and how you are using that, to support your clients and the cats at the shelter, because I think that's important to share with people.
I think the best way I can explain it is kind of a shortened version of my journey. What got me connected to cats was seeing and feeling that emotional experience in the shelter. I wish I could say it's a lot of it's body language, a lot of it's just energy. You feel it, you pick up on it. And, when I got into the behavior realm, which is amazing, that's a very separate realm from energy. And, you're around a lot of behavior modification, training, techniques, formulas, things like that. And did that trip me up really hard in the shelter. In ways, it was wonderful because I really learned a lot about body language and was able to train other volunteers on what to look for in body language. And I actually had, a little sheet I had volunteers fill out where they could mark off, this is the cat looks this way. And now it's morphed into that the people at the shelter have these cute little adjectives that you can pin on the cat's little cages that say fearful or cuddly or all these things, where they're recognizing emotions in the cats in the shelter now, and they're honoring that. And these little small changes have really helped. But for me also, that, there's only so much you can do in a shelter. You can't modify behavior in a shelter. And I know that there's a lot of wonderful programs that teach cats clicker training and high five. And, that's wonderful. that's not me. Like, that's just not me. I can't, that's not how I connect with cats. So really, getting back to the roots of that emotion and energy work, and just the holding the space and giving them respect and allowing them to choose how they want to be interacted with. The layman's term, the simple way, I can say that it's just study body language. Body language can give you some really wonderful clues, and be really cognizant of that and respectful of that. Side note a little bit is like, when I started at the shelter, unfortunately, it's still the name of the volunteer role is kitty cuddler. And in 2013, we were taught how to scruff cats and put them in cages, or wrap them up and carry them around to socialize them, or pull them out of their cages. And, that was how we were trained. And that has changed. The name hasn't. I would really love if we'd be like kitty supporters or something else. But, the approach to respect their boundaries and their body language has, evolved since I started there. And that's not all on me, but it's definitely the support and understanding of the staff and volunteers. And especially these days, more, people who want to volunteer are really more keen on learning about cats and understanding some of the stuff that we're so strongly advocating for. Don't know if that answered your question, but tried.
No, I love it. And it's great to hear that the shelter, I have to think shelter because it's rescue in the UK. It's great to hear that's evolving. And I think, as there is more awareness about cats and about other animals as well, these places will evolve. That's what happens, isn't it? And it's great to hear that you're able to be in that position where you can support, educate, and help to be more of an advocate and to bring those people on board with it. Okay, I've just realized what the time is. It's just over 8 o'clock. I've got a couple more questions, but they're quite kind of light-hearted ones. So first of all, what is it like being a cat mum to 2 new kittens? And what is it like, because you are a behaviorist and a cat advocate, how does that play out at home?
Oh my gosh, before I got these kittens, I was terrified of killing them. Like, I really was. I was like, I've never had kittens before. When we adopted Shara, she was 4 years old. And this is my mentality. I was saying to Joseph, if we're going to get kittens, we should do it now, because by the time they're like 15, we'll be 50. We might not want kittens when we're 50. But like, how do you, what if we break them, or I step on them, or all things? I had such, this is when I was in kind of too much the logic brain of like, oh, I need to clicker train them. Oh, I need to get them used to all of this and all of these things. And they need to have this, this, and this. Yeah. And you know what, about 2 weeks into that of like, I have to be this way with them, and they have to be these cats because I'm the cat behavior lady and I need these. That went out the window. And they're totally wonderful cats. They have, I'm really good at making sure they have great resources. They have lots of scratching posts, lots of, fun things to do. They have each other, which is amazing. That saves, oh my goodness. 2 kittens are so easy. They beat up on each other, then they cuddle and groom, and then they beat up each other later, and then they go back to cuddling. So it was a great lesson for me, and reinforcing to me that, sometimes cats just kind of want to be cats. And, I'm sure they can be clicker trained to do wonderful things and all these things. And, there's things that like with clicker training, and, I've gotten them used to carriers by leaving them out, but you can't do everything in this cat world. You can't be everything, do everything, like everything. And I'm okay with that. So I just really enjoy their company. I really appreciate their antics, especially Jules, my ginger boy, who is a nut. He is mischievous and silly. He gets himself into trouble, but it makes me laugh. And Juniper is my little shadow, and she's the sweet little kitten who wants to be cuddled and all of that. And I just appreciate who they are. And, I've kind of let go of like, my cats need to be a certain way because I'm this title, and just like, whatever. So I've had to surrender.
I love that. Sorry, my love, go on.
No, I've had to surrender, but like in a good way. Like, it's fine. Let them be them.
I think that's brilliant. And I love what you said about letting them be them, and that you can't do it all. You can't be it all. And that, I think, is something that I really hope people take away from our live tonight. Whether you're working in a rescue, whether you're a cat mum, cat dad, whatever it may be, you can't do it all. You can do your best in each moment. And that is all we can ask of ourselves. The recent week with Leo, I look back on it, and there've been moments I thought I should have said this, should have that. I thought, I have to let that go, because I did the best that I could in that moment. And I can now either beat myself up about it and have guilt for it, or I can learn from it. And I love the fact that, even as cat specialists, shall we call ourselves, sometimes the logic goes out the window. The things you think you should do, or the things you think, you know how to do, that's not always there when you're dealing with X, Y, or Z in front of you, and I think, I would really love people to go easy on themselves, because, when we're dealing with our own cats, it's different. The emotion is overwhelming. The emotion takes over, and I love that you're able to kind of highlight the differences in Jules and Juniper in terms of, she's a bit more kind of reserved, but actually very loving. He's very kind of cheeky and a little bit mischievous. And that in itself, every cat, just like every human, is different. So, whether regardless of what cats you're working with, just be easy on yourself and know that you're doing the best you can, everyone. Okay, so 2 final questions. What would be your key takeaway to people? What would you want people to either take away from what we've shared in terms of our conversation, or what would be your kind of nugget of wisdom, shall we say? What's your parting thought to share with our community and people that have joined us live and catching it on replay?
My main takeaway is, when you have a cat, or you're with a cat that's experiencing any type of difficulty, challenges, take a step back from the problem solving and the applying the modification and the training, and kind of think about what could be causing my cat to do this based on what they're feeling, their emotions. There's a lot of, idea that cats do things out of spite, or they're angry. And so much of that is like a stress response or an anxiety response. Take a step back. I think you've taught me so much, Julianne, to take a step back, listen to yourself, listen to your intuition, spend a moment with your cat, get in touch with, that connection with your cat, and kind of see what comes up for you there. And then, solicit other types of, things like the behavior modification and training. But I always think, like, take that step back before you go dive into the training and the modification, because I think that's a missing piece that a lot of us are not really connecting with. And when you just apply techniques and modification to something that's, emotionally unhealed, it's not going to be as helpful for you or your cat. So that's my main takeaway. Take a step back, listen to your heart, connect with your cat, listen to their heart, and go from there.
Oh my goodness, that is lovely. I love it. That is at the core of what I'm trying to share with people, and it's almost like I prepped you to share that answer, but I know we didn't even manage to talk about what we were going to do for tonight. So I'm so honored that you have that belief and that approach, because I know that the more of us that are speaking up about it, the more we can help to support others to find that connection. Because a lot of people don't have it. They like you said, they see that, for example, like a problem behavior with their cat, and they go straight to, I need to fix it. And it's not just about fixing it, it's about understanding where it's come from. Why has it happened? What's going on with the cat? And I love the fact that you brought yourself into it, because we need to be aware of how our energy, our vibration, our emotional state affects them. and not just in one moment, but as a build up, you know, if we're worried about something continuously. And I'm going to do a shameless plug because you pitched it, the segue so well. But the Connected Cats course that I'm running, that starts again at the end of October and finishes in November, so it's straddling the 2 months, is exactly this. It teaches you how to connect with your heart. We go from, you know, head to spirit to heart to physical. You know, we cover all 4 elements. And we had module 3 on Tuesday, and I cannot believe the healing that is going on with the women that I am working with. And it's profound for all of us. I'm shocked as to how much they're connected with themselves, how much healing they're going through. And then that's having a knock-on effect to their cats. You know, I've got one of the ladies, won't share names and things, but she's got a few cats. There's one cat she doesn't really have a, let's say, a strong relationship with. You know, the cat will kind of come for a bit of a cuddle every now and again, you know. So we talked about how she can connect more with that cat. And when we did a guided meditation, actually, at the end of the session, it was about connecting heart to heart, from us to one of our cats. That was the cat that came through for her, and she said she couldn't believe the emotional connection that she experienced. And the hilarious thing was, whilst we were in meditation, that cat came and sat on her, and then when I finished, she got up and left. I mean, it was amazing. It really was amazing. So if you want to connect more with your cat, to trust yourself, to find your inner knowing and how to use that with your cat, you need to come and join us for the Connected Cats course starting at the end of October. You can find details on my website, www.naturallycats.co.uk. Head to the shop tab and it is under services. Sarah's just commented on Instagram, Connected Cats is absolutely incredible. Thoroughly recommend it. Thank you, my love. She's one of my amazing ladies, and you know, it's just been a fabulous space. So thank you very much, Sarah, for your comments, and thank you, Stephanie, for that lovely segue for me to share.
You're welcome.
With others. Okay, last question before I wrap us up. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at The Fulfilled Feline. My website is thefulfilledfeline.com, and my email is thefulfilledfeline@gmail.com.
Lovely. And just give us an overview about what kind of content you put out. You know, how can you support people? What can they get from you?
Well, I had my first, master class this past weekend on senior cats, optimizing their golden years. I've definitely been working on shifting more to doing course type content and education. That is my jam. I love teaching, and I love having participants who are just as enthusiastic about learning about cats as I am about teaching them. So I'm getting ready to move to a new house soon. And I'll have my own office space. So I plan on having a lot more coming out in the new year as far as course offerings. I do have some individual consulting services as well currently, but I'm really looking forward to the new year and creating some awesome content. And I've been thinking about creating guidebooks and stuff in Canva and lots of cool ideas. I'm expanding my realm of what I thought I could do, and doing more and helping it align more with this heart stuff that I think is really important when working with cats.
Yes. That is brilliant. I can't wait to see your content. I know it's going to help so many people, because your passion to educate, to support, to help people to grow and to understand cats, I think will be phenomenal. So I for one will be keeping an eye on what you're doing in terms of content provision with everybody. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's joined us here live, the people that have been sharing their comments and their thoughts, and for being here with us. And to Stephanie, it's been a real honor to have you talking with the Naturally Cats community, and I'm so honored that we have somebody. I'm so honored that I found somebody who is also just as passionate about cats and their emotional space, their emotional capacity, their emotional awareness as I am, because one voice is great, but two voices could be even louder. And if we've got more people in our community that agree with us, that believe the same that we do, comment and share and pull people to us, whether you invite them to Naturally Cats or to the Fulfilled Feline with Stephanie, It doesn't matter. But, you know, let's, as I'm going to say, and it's going to sound super cheesy, but let's give cats a voice. You know, that's what we are here to do, is to share our passion, to share our awareness, and to be those cat advocates. So just before we go, Vanille says, thank you guys, it was wonderful. Lots of little heart and hug emojis. I feel so connected to all the things you said. Such a great space to be in. Agnes said, thank you, ladies. June said, thank you. Go Cats, giving us lovely 3 hearts. Sarah says, thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's been amazing. And thank you very much to Stephanie for your time. Here it is 8:15, so I'm going to go and see if I can find Leo and see if he's interested in any form of play. What time is it over where you are? Because, you know, I'm terrible at the time zones.
It's 3:15.
Lovely. So are you going to go and find Jaws and Juniper? Is it playtime soon?
I think it's nap time.
They're more for you.
For me. Maybe them too. We'll see when I open the door what I'm greeted with.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Stephanie. And don't forget to follow her on Facebook and Instagram at The Fulfilled Feline. And I am pretty sure we will have you back for another live, because, you know, this hasn't really felt like an awkward live. It's just been like a chat with, you know, great friends and fellow cat people, you know, fellow cat advocates. So thank you, everyone. We shall see you soon. Take care. And until next time, bye for now.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, everyone.